welcome back to the Accommodation Show. I'm very excited today because I'm welcoming Gonthong Lourdesamy. She is an operator that's joining us all the way from Thailand. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
I feel absolutely honored and privileged to have someone from so far away joining us. And not only that, I'm excited because of what you do. You're the general manager of Our Jungle House and Our Jungle Camp. Now, if you're listening to the show, I recommend that you click on the links and have a look at the beautiful accommodation and what they're doing. They've got over 40 accommodations. She's managing 60 staff, so it's a sizable operation. And today, what we're going to talk about is the interaction between her and the customers out there. But before we get into it, Gonthong, I would love you to introduce yourself. Let everybody know a little bit about yourself, a bit about your story, and how you got into where you are today.
Hi again. My name is Gonthong and I'm Thai. So my background started as an environmental educator and also like educational tourism in a way. I used to take a group of international school students, overseas students, as well as local Thai schools out to learn about Thailand, culture, nature, and places that they should pay more attention to see what issues out there. And from then, I moved to Malaysia and lived there for over 10 years, having family, but also working in the social enterprise, dealing with another business altogether. But however, I had a chance to be part of the Responsible Tourism Award that was started by Wire Asia. So we had about 10 years straight experience to understand what the accommodation need to do in order to get to close to the standard that's set by GSTC. So I was from the other side of the paper, and now I'm in it, running the accommodation myself, and I feel like that's really challenging to meet the standards required by GSTC. So I'm still in the learning mode.
Can you tell the audience what the GSTC is?
The Global Sustainable Tourism Criteria that was adapted, I think, by many travel standards, whether it's Travel Life or Green Globe. They tend to base on this, where they look at the way the accommodation operates, whether it's legal, care for nature, care for people, and sustainable in their own business. So those are the main criteria of looking at how we as a business behave.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is Our Jungle Camp part of this, and is that sort of part of, have you kind of continued that journey, or is that something completely separate at this stage?
It is not there yet. I learned as an operator, I learned that it is hard to meet certain requirements when you are outside of the city. When you are in the middle of nowhere, you don't have certain facilities or infrastructure that service you the same way the hotel or resorts in the big city would have. So both Our Jungle House and Our Jungle Camp are not applying ourselves into that. However, we practice it, but we don't get the paper to certify us.
Yeah, okay, that's understandable. So, look, I think that leads to the next sort of natural question. Tell me about what you're doing now. Tell me about Our Jungle Camp and Our Jungle House. What does it look like out there? Can you paint a picture for our audience as to what it looks like?
Well, you have to either close your eyes, imagine yourself stand right in the middle of the jungle, and on your left is a tall tree house built on wood and with a bamboo structure, and on your right there's a big huge limestone cliff and the river nearby. And your host, not just me but the monkeys and the cicada and the crickets and all the jungly animals that you could find. So that's how we look like.
That sounds amazing. That's amazing. And I think I was reading that this isn't a new endeavor. That this accommodation has been around for a little while. How long have they been running for?
Jungle House has been here since 1985, but when it first started, it was like a small bungalow, a hut style, and through many years gradually improved and replaced those old houses with the tree houses or the newer bungalow. For our jungle camp, it was built about 5 years ago, kind of like taking the lesson learned from our jungle house to create a new property. But it has less land than our jungle house, so the way it exudes the feeling to guests is more like togetherness and good for young family where kids can run around and they know where they are.
Okay, great. And look, I'd love you to help me set the picture a little bit more in terms of two things. One is in terms of the actual guests, like who they are and where they come from. But also, maybe start off with this. Could you tell me sort of like the average day that they, like a guest would have, and what kind of experience you're actually providing for them?
Pre-COVID, we have almost full house most of the time, like easily 8 months a year, and everyone come to Khao Sok want to explore what Khao Sok is, because Khao Sok is in an area that like off the beaten track. So the famous spot that they go visit is Sheo La Lake, which is like a limestone kind of foundation and surrounding, and the water pristine clear. So everyone either go there for overnight lake trip or full day lake trip. So guests will be busy, get together before they head off to the trip. So during the day, we actually, even though full house, we actually don't really have anyone around, because they either go out for the lake trip or go to the jungle for a day hike, or go to do like some bamboo rafting or cooking with the locals. Everyone's busy with something to do. And then evening, everyone come back. That when the resort is like live again.
Yeah, great. Okay, so and then for people to get to the accommodation, is it close to a major city? Do they have to kind of walk in? Do you drive in? What does that look like?
Our jungle house and our jungle camp are accessible by road, so we are sort of like in between Phuket, which is like the west coast of Thailand, and Samui, which is eastern coast of Thailand, and we right in the middle. So when travelers travel from Phuket to Samui, they tend to stop here first, and so they either come by public bus. Pre-COVID, we have a lot of public bus, and then or else private transfer, like the van or the car, because they don't want to meddle with the public services.
Yeah, right. So you've got this beautiful accommodation, this beautiful spot, things are running well, and I think the story is the same for a lot of places, that you're quite heavily reliant on international tourists and travelers coming along. And then COVID comes along and then things change. Now, as far as I understand, that's roughly the time that you joined the business as well, when things were probably a lot more disjointed and you had to go and innovate and change things. And that's why I have you on today, is actually to talk about the learnings of how things have changed, how you're remolding the business and the things that you're doing in your business, and to share, I guess, different tips that people can learn in terms of pivoting, changing, being agile, and that sort of thing. So would love to understand like a bit more about the business side of things and the ins and outs. So before, you had many international travelers, and then that ended all of a sudden. What does the business look like, I guess, from pre-COVID to now that we're in the middle of COVID?
I was lucky to be here like about 15 months before COVID hit. By the time it reached us, basically it's toward end of March. And unlike other area of Thailand, some were hit by January and February, so we had until like end of the month. And then government shut down for 2 months, so we were like, all right, capacity building the staff and cleaning the houses. And to reopen to what next, it took us a while to figure out like who will be next, because we were, I think, maybe similar to everyone else, we had no idea what next each month. So we thought, when we reopen, there will be travelers back. And we had some who left in Thailand as like they started, they couldn't fly out and so on. But then we realized we couldn't rely on them. Like from an occupancy of like 90 and above a month, we down to like 10 or like 6% a month in June when we reopened. So we learned that it's Thai who we need to tap into. But everything in this resort had never designed for Thai. Like the first Thai guest that we had, to my like kind of like surprise, I surprised myself. The guest was looking at the menu, which was written in English, and they had to turn it around to see, because they couldn't read English and they had no idea what they're looking at. I saw that my heart sank, like, oh, my mistake. So I ran to them and kind of like explained what we have, what can they order. After that, I ran back, typed everything in Thai, print it out, and laminate. Off you go, the Thai menu. So some small thing like that, but it really unfolded. We actually never prepared for domestic tourists before. And all messages on website were in English. So of course, Thai don't go into website to understand English. I kind of like realized everyone's still very much on social media. So Facebook is the main thing. And at the same time, everyone sort of like do the live show, the sales online, those kind of things. So I'm trying to understand like, okay, how do we get the Thai to see us? But I know like at least we have to move from website to Facebook. And the language has to change from English to Thai. So then I speak Thai again to the audience.
Yeah, right. Okay. So let me rewind a little bit. So you realize that the international traveler market is not one that you'll be able to rely on and survive on moving forward. And then you realize, okay, we have to tap into local markets because that's what it's going to be, at least for now, and get the most out of it. So then you start marketing yourself to a more local market. And then you've got two sides of it. One is the marketing side, so getting people in, and then the other one is the operational side of the things that you have to change to cater to this new guest.
Yeah.
Now, when you were looking at your demographic before of the international traveler, I could imagine there would be anything from a backpacker to a more affluent traveler that's coming to visit you. But then when you're changing to a local market as well, you're trying to find your feet and figure out who those people are that are going to be visiting you. And then also, I guess the other side of it, which I always think about, is how do they engage with the business? Where are they hanging out in terms of their online presence? Are they hanging out on websites? Are they hanging out on forums, on Reddit, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, and that sort of thing? So from our conversation that we had before, you said that this is something you were quite conscious of, to say, Facebook is very important to us. Can you kind of walk me through that journey that you had in terms of identifying who you're targeting in the Thai market and why Facebook was important to you, and if there are any other platforms that were important as well?
Yeah, I guess it came because of the regulations of the government. They said that, all right, this month restricted movement, only can travel within province. So we are in Surat Thani, which means our guests would have to come from Surat Thani. And before that, I have no idea who they are or what is their purchasing power, because it's a large province and a lot of agricultural base kind of thing. So we sort of like figure out what would interest them and try to market like super local in terms of like just one province, because of the restricted movement. And I think we live on that for about 2-3 months, just Surat Thani people alone. And the way we kind of like try to figure out how to reach them is by using the hashtag. So we have to use the Thai term about the province name, hashtag Surat Thani, hashtag in Thai like Surat Thani accommodation, hashtag our own place, but like everything has to change from like the word in English tree house, that has to be hashtag tree house in Thai. You know, like change that and hope that when people search, they found these keywords and they found us. That was my like 101 Facebook marketing.
So was this Facebook or was this Instagram or both?
We did both, like because I post Instagram and it shoot out to Facebook, but I realized Thai local are more Facebook people.
Yeah, okay. So you were targeting the sort of that local demographic, and then I assume that as things start to open up, then you go a little bit broader with
Yes.
the people that you're targeting.
Yes.
And tell me what the experience was and what the results were of you making that change.
We had like guests from the same province as we are who came here and said, wow, I never knew we have this in our province. So basically they discover us like out of their surprise. So I would say because Thai people like to be in the place that they know it was visited by foreigners before. They felt international level. So although we didn't have what they like, local tourists like aircon, like TV, like to have fridge in the room, like to have Wi-Fi in the room, and we have none of the above. It took us a huge step in terms of communicating with them to set their expectation correctly. And it only works when they book directly, but if they book via OTA, it tend to be a little bit of disaster because they don't read well what we have and don't have.
Wow. Okay, I didn't expect that at all. So you had, I mean, you would have thought that the international standards would be to have air conditioning and to have all of these things. But from what I'm hearing you say is that was part of the experience, is to kind of get back to the jungle, get into nature, and not have these modern conveniences. And then you're targeting a new market, and they have different expectations. It's like, oh, hold on. So you had to rework on the market to explain to them, well, we're not a fancy hotel.
Yeah.
We're doing this, but you're getting this unique kind of experience And that'll be an interesting one. So how do they take that? Because obviously the beauty of the local area is something that they'll know anyway, right? So they say, well, why would I stay here when I see this every single day? Was that a bit of a challenge, sort of selling that product?
I would say because our product is quite unique. Having tree houses by the river and right against the limestone cliff is not pretty common in the area. So they know that is like something unique and beautiful about it. So I think during that time, most of the pictures I post would be somewhere around that angle. I won't do anything to do with food. I won't do anything to do with the tour because they don't come here to do jungle hiking. They just want to come and hang out. So we had to like shift how we understand what they want. At one point, we kind of like promote group because Thai like to come in big group. They don't come just two of them only. They come in like a whole family, 10 of them. So the way we communicate has to like, all right, if you come 10 and above, here's a price per head, which we never do that. We only sell like rooms. To the foreigner, we just sell rooms, not even include breakfast. But with Thai, they expect room and breakfast, and it will be easier for them to know like, oh, okay, if it's like this much per head, 10 of us, we pay this much. So the whole selling strategy changed according to what people want to hear.
What the market was. So So, I mean, a very unique set of challenges and problems. How did you figure out what you were trying to learn? Is it sort of just put up a message on the socials and then see what kind of response you're getting? Were you sending out emails? Were you doing surveys? Were you talking to all your guests as they come in to see what their expectations were? Or were you like, no, I understand the Thai market, I know what they want, and then just kind of going from the hip, which I assume you didn't do? What were the strategies that were involved to come up with what you now know?
Yeah. When I talked to my friend, one of my friends said, "You are so scientist. You experiment," and that's what I did. I experiment everything throughout. I'm like, all right, let's experiment using hashtag and see how it get to people. And when guests come, when they came, I chat with them like, how did you find us? And then I learned like, okay, this is where they pick us from. So I came back and like, okay, keep on doing that. And then if it didn't work, I shared my experiment. Like, okay, let's do the beautiful photo of the scenes. And then I learned, Thai actually love to see picture of people in it. Before this, I never post photo with people in it much. But then it's a trend where they like some people in it. So if I saw like some guests post on their Facebook beautiful photo with them inside, I would then go to messenger, chat with them like, could I repost your photo? And most of the time, basically everyone would say, yes, please go ahead. So I'll repost their photo, and it became like a trend where they want to be like that person in that environment. So that I learned, so okay, let's do different view on the tree house, in the river, by the beach, on the walkway, whatever it is that they have. Then I'll kind of like experiment number 2.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So trial and error is basically what you're saying, is you'd be trying and then you'd be measuring by getting feedback wherever you could, or see how many likes there are on a post and say, okay, that's working. Yes. Or even potentially, from what you're saying, is look at posts that your guests have done that have stayed and see which ones have done well, and then just take those.
Yes.
And there's even less experiment, right? Because you're already taking something which you know has worked and then using that content. Now, from a content creation point of view and that sort of thing, was this something that you've done before? Was it natural to you, or is it something that you've had to learn very quickly because you realize that you've got new markets that you need to tap into?
I just have to learn on the dot, because I don't think before this we were heavy on social media. Like we post every 4 or 5 days just to make people aware, here we are. COVID time is like every 2 days, like every 3 days the latest. And then content have to be thought what they want to hear. Before this is what I feel like is beautiful, but then it's changed. No longer like from where I think, but it has to be from what they want to see.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so you've managed to get into the new market, so that's fascinating on its own, and the way that you've approached that I think is quite nice for everyone to know. Another element that we did talk about was the method of communication. Now, back in the day, or especially over here, people will book through an OTA, or they'll jump onto a website and book direct, or even pick up the phone. You were saying that more guests are using the social media platforms themselves to get key information, but also to place bookings. Can you kind of walk through what's going on for you?
Yes, because like I mentioned, our website, everything was is in English, and so for Thai, it's like no way they can fill up the form that we have for booking. So, and I myself, because we live in the middle of nowhere, I have become the customer of online product, and we had to chat with them via Messenger. So I'm like, that's how they do it. So I then turned myself to be the provider, and then use Messenger as a mean to chat with customer. In Thailand, we use a lot of Line, not WhatsApp, but something similar. But Line was also another platform that Thai people love to use to chat. So we kind of like use both interchangeably, to communicate with guests throughout.
And how far does that communication go? So from inquiry, does it go all the way through to booking?
Yes, everything done there until from asking how many rooms do we have, what type of rooms, how much it is. So we send photo, we send price, we send information. What do you call it? Confirm booking. We send the confirm notes and even like the link to the map how to get here. So we close the sale on Messenger.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, out of curiosity, do you know what percentage of your business will be made up of those sort of messenger type reservations and bookings?
For Thai, it's like 95% for Thai market.
Wow.
Yeah, only like
Wow.
5% on the OTA booking.
And would you say that that's driven more because it's a cultural Thai thing, or would you say that it's also demographic driven? And what I mean by that is it because you're just attracting more young people through your social media? Young people just use these platforms more, so that's the way they interact. Because I imagine that the older Thai demographic wouldn't engage with you in that particular way, or is it more of a global thing across Thailand?
It's become nationwide. Everyone use Line and Messenger to talk to people these days. I have people like of my generation doing the same, and the young people the same. But because when we behind, we call ourselves admin of the page. When we become the admin, there is no age label on us. My conversation with them will change according to my clients. Like if I figure out that they are young, so my words are less formal. I will be like
Sure.
playing the same way they communicate.
Yeah, wow. Okay, and then I've got one final question on this particular part, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go into part 2 because there's another massive topic I want to cover with you. So just to finish out that communication path, and I think that a lot of people will learn because this is going to change worldwide. I really believe in it, that it's not just, hey, this is happening in Thailand. This will happen all over the world where you're going to need to be able to connect with people on whatever their chosen platform of communication is, be it Instagram, Messenger, WhatsApp, Signal. That's going to be important as a business owner. How do you close out the end of the sales process? So you've got them, you've given them their quote, they said, yes, I'd like to book. Do you take any credit card details, or do you have some sort of way of activating that deposit or some sort of money exchange?
Because Thailand, I would say, it's very advanced with the banking application on the phone. So everyone has at least one bank account application on their phone. So when they book, they can transfer money to us and they send a slip to show that, okay, I have paid your deposit.
So, and are you giving them your bank details, or are you giving them
Yes.
like right? So you're giving them the bank
Bank
details,
detail.
and then they just push it through.
And there's no fee in between, so it's easy on both sides, and it can be done like in less than a minute.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so love everything we've done so far, but I want to move on to another very important topic, which you told me about, and I'm kind of almost salivating over this topic because it's exciting. You said, hey, Bart, one of the biggest things that we did was we used influencers to help us with our marketing strategy.